my university degree was software engineering. And so, yeah, I was a coder and went in there, and the first project I was assigned was to code a music sequencer for the Mega Drive. So that was kind of cool anyway, because I was doing something musically orientated. But yeah, really rewarding writing that system. I was working with another guy called Sean, and he was doing all the machine code stuff, and I was doing the sort of high level C programming. And we finished that, I think, 2 months ahead of schedule. So I suggested to our boss Jeremy that, you know, I wrote some music on it to demonstrate how it works. Spent a couple of days writing a tune on it, and then he listened to it and he went, well, he liked it so much, he said, why don't you write the rest of the music for that game, for the Asterix game? It was very different back then. You know, the way core design worked was, you know, somebody would have an idea, there'd be some sort of meeting, and people would pitch in some ideas for games, and Jeremy would sort of say, right, that's great, let's do that one. You lot over there, get on with that, and you lot over there, you get on with that. And so that was it. It was like a bunch of guys, I don't know, between sort of 5 and 10 guys in a room. It was your responsibility to make that thing that you asked him, please can we make this, sir, you know. And basically he gave you a deadline, have it ready by November, you know, and so fuck that, you know, off you go and get on with it. When it came to kind of doing the music and making the sounds, it was very much left in my hands to decide what went on there. I think, you know, most of the time, you know, I got it right, and the same with Martin Iveson, who was the other musician there. You know, most of the time we delivered the right kind of style, the right sort of feeling for that particular game.
What was the inspiration behind the sound of Tomb Raider? Did you already have a mindset before going in, or was it something that just came as you made it?
Some things were discussed. So, you know, we talked about English classical music. We talked about Lara Croft and who she was and what she looked like and what her attitude was. We talked about places where she goes, what she does. So, you know, I was starting to sort of build up a picture in my head of the kind of person is the lead character in the game. And also I'm getting to hear the sort of places she goes to. That's also really important, because that really kind of sets your mood. That was kind of about as much as I knew. But the thing that really shaped the sound was largely a time constraint, because I had, I think, 3 weeks to write all the music.
Oh, right. Crikey, 3 weeks.
Yeah.
That surprises me. I don't know why. I would have thought that would have been a bit longer. I don't know. It just the quality of it afterwards. It just seems like it had a lot more time put into it, if that makes sense. So you know, the fact you managed to pull that out of the bag in 3 weeks is bloody impressive, good sir.
This is the thing, right? Okay, so if I was writing, say, a tune for Soulstar, which had lots more instruments, okay, it would take me, I don't know, 3-4 days to write a 3-minute piece of music. If you need to write a 3-minute piece of music faster, you need to either stay awake more or reduce the number of instruments you're writing for. You just don't put as many instruments in the orchestra as you could, because you haven't got time, right?
No, of course.
So part of the time constraint forced me to kind of just keep the instrumentation minimal, because I haven't got time to start doing elaborate stuff all over the place with 60-70 instruments. You know, there isn't time. I've got 3 weeks, I've got to get the music done. So part of it was that, and part of it was, like I say, knowing Lara Croft and what she was about. You know, for me, she was quite a beautiful game character. It was like, wow, you know, she looks pretty impressive. There was a sort of intimate side, I guess, to Lara Croft, which I felt would be nice to describe. Because, you know, aside from the double guns blowing the shit out of everybody and all that kind of thing, you know, she's a lady and she's got emotions, and there's a side of her that does care. So, you know, the fact that she cares and she has those kind of emotions, I thought it would be nice to describe that kind of thing. And I didn't feel like there was that sort of emotional content in games at the time. It was just very sort of bombastic or, you know, dance-based driving rhythms. And I mean, there were some other styles kicking around, but it was the emotional content that wasn't really there. You know, there weren't really games that had anything like love or sadness or, you know, loneliness, you know, those kind of emotions. And I just remember thinking, well, why isn't that kind of stuff in games? You know, gamers like movies, and there's loads of emotional content in movies, so why not have that in games? You know, so that was kind of the other side of it. But it was partly it was just me writing what I wanted to hear and finding a reason to put that in the game.
I was actually going to ask what the first piece you actually wrote for the series was. Was it the theme, or was it another track in the game entirely?
No, it was the theme, I think. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
And how long did that take you to write, or was that something you already had in your mind from the get-go?
No. It probably took about 2 days. It's not that long. It's only about 2.5 minutes, I think. No, it's a long time ago. Can't remember exactly, but you know.
No, of course.
Know, I didn't have a melody in mind or anything like that. You know, I often don't when I start writing for anything. I usually just start with patterns and textures first, and then I sort of build on those textures till I have something that I think is a really nice kind of bed. And then I work on the melody, and I can work for a whole day on a melody, no problem. You know, you just keep playing with it and playing with it and playing with it until it says what you want it to say. When I was writing Tomb Raider in 1996, and the time constraints are on, you know you've got a tune that's got to go here because this thing happens. Okay, so you write a tune, you sort of time it in with the game, and it's like, well, shit, I've only got 20 seconds because the action's over after 20 seconds. She's into another room, she's doing something else. It's like, well, I only need 20 seconds. That's really annoying because I would love to stretch this piece out to 3 minutes, but there's no point because the gamer is only going to hear 20 seconds. So you only write 20 seconds. Because there's no point in writing anymore. So you cut it off, and that's it. Get on with the next tune for the next bit in the game. Right, 20 years later, come to doing the Tomb Raider suite, and I'm picking the music out of the games that has any kind of length at all, like at least 30 seconds, something like that, okay? I pull out all the music from Tomb Raider 1, and I've got about 11 minutes or something, or 15 minutes. And it was like, that's not very much. What am I going to do? It was like, you know, I can't just deliver 15 minutes from Tomb Raider. So it's like, well, I need to stretch it out. And so the pieces that, you know, I remembered thinking, oh, that would be good if that was a bit longer, they were sort of hot favourites for the Tomb Raider suite. So it's like, great, I know I've got another 2 or 3 minutes on that piece, definitely, because, you know, I was into that 20 years ago. So it was kind of nice to venture out with those pieces, but all the new material for the Tomb Raider suite was written in 2016.
And obviously, because the live concert happened, that's when the rest of the project started, because you then got the sort of the inspiration to sort of think, oh, hang on a minute, I'd like other people to be able to hear this. Why not let's get this thing running?
Not exactly. So when we when we did the deal with Square Enix, it was three-pronged project. So it has a live show, studio album at Abbey Road, and a TV documentary. That's the deal. That's what we set out to do. We actually wanted to make the album first because we wanted to sell the album at the show. But we were under time pressure because the 20th anniversary of Tomb Raider was 2016, and we couldn't raise the money to get to Abbey Road in time, but we did manage to raise the money for the live concert. So we decided to literally put the album on hold because it was taking up a lot of time. I was trying to kind of get the money. So we just focused on the show. So that's when I'd written the suite in preparation for making the album. But the whole process had started just too late. By the time we got everything ready, it just started too late. And so, like I say, we thought, okay, well, what we have to hit was the concert, because that is, it was the final event of the 20th anniversary. So, and this was all, Square Enix were in on this, and they understood what was going on, and they wanted it to happen, and blah, 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 blah. So that's what we did. We just focused on the show. And it was, in a way, kind of good for me, because I saw the reaction from the fans at the show, and that convinced me that, yeah, this works. I'd done a good job. I've extended those pieces. People didn't go, oh, I didn't like those new bits. There was none of that. Everyone just went, that's brilliant. That sounded like it's always been there. It was just amazing how it worked. So I was really pleased about that. So it gave me a lot of confidence. Moving forward on the project, and the next step was getting the money to go to Abbey Road, which of course we did through Kickstarter eventually.
I did actually have a watch of some of the Abbey Road videos that got posted on your YouTube channel, and the look on your face when you're walking around Abbey Road studio, you just look like you're pleased as punch. You just can't quite believe that you're actually stood in there, and happy as Larry looking at us. Oh, the Steinway! Look at the Steinway there, and so I've got talk about the isolation booth for the sitar player and everything, and the orchestra warming up, and it must have been an amazing opportunity and moment for you to be stood there doing this.
I could have lived there. I could live there quite easily. I like being in studios anyway, but that place is just fantastic. It's the cream of the crop, It's known as the best.
Well, it's recording mecca, isn't it, basically?
Orchestras in Great Britain. Yeah, so they've got all the latest kit, and they've got nice things like pianos and celestes and, and stuff like that. It's like, I could just sit here all day and play this.
When the recording process actually started in Abbey Road, what were kind of like the big challenges that you faced with sort of obviously handling a live orchestra? Is it something prior to the actual live concert? Is it something that you've done before on more than one occasion? Were you prepared for it, did you feel?
To some degree, yeah, because although I haven't worked with a live orchestra before, I have, in my career in computer games, I've been audio director on several projects. And there's times when you're dealing with a team of people. There are times when we go to a recording studio to record voice artists, and you've got 3 or 4 people in a booth, and you've got a producer and a designer and a script writer, and then you've got the engineer and blah 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 blah. So you've got like 10 or so people in that recording studio, and you're in charge of it all. It's it's your project. You're the audio director. So in that respect, it felt pretty much the same. I'm in the driving seat. I'm the one that everyone has to say, is that okay? Can we move on? So I have to be 100% on what's going on for the entire time that I'm there, because everybody is looking to me for approval on stuff.
So what I would like to kind of ask is, with all the different soundtracks for 1, 2 and 3, which track would you say was your favourite from each of those to work on? Which one did you find the most fun, I guess, or the most satisfying to compose?
Tomb Raider 1, I think I'd probably have to pick Time to Run. Just because I like the violin parts and that. It's really nice. It's just nice and fast, and it's, yeah. And it sounds good on those 1080s. And when it went to the live orchestra, it sounded just as good there. Well, better, obviously.
Yeah.
I kind of like that. It's a nice, energetic piece. Tomb Raider 2 would probably be...
Venice?
Probably, yeah.
Oh, you got another one that beats it, then?
Actually, no. Not if we're talking about the game music from 1998, no. So I would say Venice for number 2. Number 3... which one was the most enjoyable to write?
I can imagine you had quite a bit of fun writing Something Spooky in the Jungle.
Yeah, well, that was on my mind. It was either that or Tony the Loon, but Yeah, we'll go with Something Spooky in the Jungle.
What was it about those tracks, would you say, that stand out for you?
Well, going in reverse order then, Something Spooky in the Jungle was just interesting because I was working with the Indian instruments, the tabla, the sitar, and trying to make that work with an orchestra. So that was fun. Venice, because I was trying to make it sound like something from the Baroque period who lived in Venice. So I was listening to Vivaldi and, other guys that were sort of out there at that time. So I wanted to try and sound like one of them.
Well, mission accomplished, I'd say.
Yeah, it was quite a challenge. But I think it worked. There's a little McCree twist in it, which I wasn't sure when I wrote it. I wasn't sure whether that was just pushing the style a little bit too far. I don't know, in terms of stretching away from the style. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's just a little passing note, or an accented passing note, which is a little bit more modern in terms of writing than they probably would have done back in the 17th century, 18th century, somewhere around there. But yeah, so it's kind of nice, interesting, and it's good fun working with a harpsichord. I like harpsichord. I like it writing melodies for it, and I like it as an accompanying instrument as well.
Very prominent in a lot of tracks, actually, I've noticed, especially Venice.
Yeah.
That instrument. He certainly sounds like he's having a lot of fun playing it.
It has to be there for Venice, because all of those guys were using harpsichords with their orchestras, so it's just, yeah, it had to be there. But yeah, it adds quite a nice bit of sort of sparkle to the texture, because it's so high frequency, the plucking of the strings, so it really adds a sort of sparkle to a piece when you put a harpsichord on it. It's nice. So then back to Time to Run. Yeah, it's just it's those string parts. It's just, they're all going
Bum bum.
Yeah, and lots of syncopation. Yeah, it's more of it's almost like a rhythm piece, really.
Yeah, I can imagine.
With a few notes put in it. It's a bit like that.
Yeah,
it's almost like a drum pattern. Yeah, and it was nice sort of working with the violins and just trying to kind of make them sound like they were being played. That was always the challenge, using those JV 1080 synthesizers. They've got some great sounds, but unless you program how they're played to meticulous detail, it doesn't necessarily sound like a real instrument. It doesn't sound like somebody playing it. Some of the violin sounds, when you hit the keys really hard, you get more of a scratch for when the bow hits the string.
Sure, it's like a sharper sound.
Yeah, it blends several sounds together. Those keyboards, those synthesizers, they have like 4 tone generators for each patch that you pick. So you pick violin, it's got actually 4 sounds that are making that violin. It's got a scratch at the top, and then it's got the sort of the initial bend into the note as the bow hits the note. Then there's a sort of sustaining sort of loop thing to it, and then sometimes you get something else, that either doubles up the sustaining loop or whatever to add a bit of sort of texture. And so when you're playing those sounds on the keyboard, you've got control over those 4 tones depending on how hard you hit the note or how hard you press the note after you've hit it, which is called aftertouch. So you can do all these things just by playing the piano to control that violin. Now, sometimes it's actually really, really difficult to play the expression and the melody at the speed at which it's going. So Time to Run is a good example, because it's so fast. You haven't got time to play it and play the expression. It's because I'm not playing a piano, I'm playing a violin via a piano. See what I mean? So it's different. It's not it's not the same. So what happens is I write a melody or I write some part or whatever, and then it's like, well, it doesn't quite sound like a violin, it sounds a bit synthetic, so then you have to then I go into the sequencer and literally I edit every single note with velocities, aftertouch. Sometimes I put a little bend on it, every single note, changing it, setting the volumes, and I'm really thinking about how a violinist plays. You know, because sometimes they can play like 4 notes with one bow, or 2 notes with one bow, or 1 note with each bow, with each up and down of the bow, you know. So you can get different sort of sounds from the violin. You can go, or you can go, so combinations of those techniques when you're doing a run on the strings, you're sort of looking at every note and trying making the sound like somebody's playing the violin. And that's what takes the time. It's editing that detail into it until it,
sure.
And you do that with every single instrument. So, yeah, you know, the faster a piece is, and the more semi-quavers or demi-semi-quavers or whatever, the more of those you got in there, the more editing you've got to do. So it takes longer to make it.
So I just wanted to sort of move on and just sort of talk a bit about your time outside of core design. So after you left core design, because you went freelance on Tomb Raider 2, and you were brought in as a contractor, I believe, for Tomb Raider 3, weren't you?
Well, not quite. So I was still at the company when they were making Tomb Raider 3. I think I was about to start writing on it, and at that point I left the company. I decided to leave. I decided I'd had enough. So I really wanted to go freelance, and so I talked to Jeremy about that, and he agreed. So basically, I sort of left the building, but started Tomb Raider 3 in my bedroom at home.
Oh wow, okay.
That was only just down the road from core, so I was still going into the building, you know, every few days just to see what was happening with the game and stuff.
You were the voice of our faithful, flatulent butler, Winston. And
Yeah.
I say flatulent because I heard a story that apparently you had to hide the fart noise that he made in the game behind, like, players had to do like a certain move, and that was your way of sneaking that little Easter egg in past Sony, I think it was.
Yeah, that's right, it was. That's exactly what happened. It wasn't such a serious world back then. You know, games were fun, and there were lots of people putting in Easter eggs and doing all sorts of things. You know, I remember one guy had a signature art piece. He was an artist, and he used to hide his little signature, which was a penis and balls somewhere. He'd hide it in the game. He'd put it in some level, you know. He'd just draw it on a rock somewhere or something like this, you know. And it's the funniest thing because, you know, it's schoolboy humour, basically. You know, there's so much stuff that gets chucked in these games that nobody knows about until years later. And it's just hilarious. It's just us lot having a laugh, basically. And that's exactly what Winston was. It was just us having a laugh. I mean, he didn't really have any purpose in the game on Tomb Raider 2. He just followed Lara around.
Got locked in the freezer.
Yeah, you know, and that wasn't our design either. It wasn't something which we even knew. Nobody had done it. You know, it wasn't an intentional design or anything. It just, the game went out, and then like a few months later, somebody started saying that, you know, oh yeah, look, I've locked Winston in the freezer, and we were like, well, what, eh? Oh yeah, you can. Look, you can lock him in the freezer. It's like, yeah, you know, and we thought that was hilarious, and of course the fans did too. Because he was really annoying, just following Lara around everyone. People used to get pissed off with him. But, you know, for us, he was like, he was the star of the show. He was like the real comedy element. And I really warmed to him, you know, and his sort of relationship with Lara. He just loyally following her everywhere. You know, it was just brilliant. Clinking away, you know, sure as hell eventually you'd hear Winston. You know, it took him a while, but he'd get there. Clink, clink, clink.
After, obviously, you did a bit of freelance work here and there, but in terms of your music coming up again in Tomb Raider, the anniversary game, which is the remake of the very first Tomb Raider, it actually reused a fair few bits here and there of your music. I mean, I just wanted to know if that was something that you were ever consulted about by the composer or by Square Enix or Crystal Dynamics when they went to make it. Sorry, it wouldn't have been Square Enix at the time, it would have been Eidos, wouldn't it?
Yeah, no, I wasn't I wasn't contacted. I had a call from Core Design to come on board to do the music for the anniversary version that they were making. But then when that got shelved and Crystal Dynamics took over the project, that was it.
So they didn't contact you at all, or just say, hey Nathan, we want to use your themes, or?
No, that was the last phone call I've ever had about Tomb Raider until I started my own project on the Tomb Raider suite.
Oh, wow.
But that's to be expected. The guys in America, they're going to be using the people that they know and that they've worked with time and time and time again. They're not going to call some guy over from England for a couple of months, or working with somebody at a great distance is often quite difficult, particularly when you've got different time zones to such a degree that one's awake when the other's asleep. It makes it quite difficult. Of course they're going to work with their people, and Crystal wanted to, I guess, make their mark with the franchise and do something good, and they've done some brilliant things with it.
Did you hear the tracks, the interpretations that were made?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I've listened to all the music of every game. Lots of times as well, mate. I thought what Trolls did was great. I think it was a really good production. It was really enjoyable listening to somebody else interpret my music. He didn't write in the same style as I did. And I would, for the anniversary, I would have obviously written it differently, because we have different kit, we have different ways of writing, we have different things we like to listen to. So of course it would have been different had I done it, but it doesn't mean either way is right or wrong. It's nothing about that. It's just about shining a different light on it. And like I say, it was really interesting for me to sort of listen to that.
We've got three more questions from the community, and then I'll leave you to evening, because it's probably really late where you are at the moment. It's probably an hour ahead, which I'm going to keep thinking.
Yeah, it's 11, but not too late for me.
Okay, cool. So one of them is from a user of mine called Easel Games, and he asks, what did you learn from working on the Tomb Raider Suite project?
Loads of things. I learned how to be a record company. I learned what a nightmare it is trying to edit a recording of 124 musicians simultaneously. Trying to edit that and make sure everybody's in time is just like, I didn't learn that at all. I just watched somebody do it. But I did learn that it was incredibly skilled. There's a whole load of things to take into consideration, and Paul Pritchard, who was our mixing engineer, was just brilliant. He's got a really, really fine ear, attention to detail, and just works like a Trojan. The mastering side of it was new to me. I spent a day with Jeff Pesh. That was good, just me and him. And our production manager came along a bit later. So yeah, it's kind of nice to sort of hear about that process and how that works. I still haven't got the master discs from Abbey Road, because this is for the...
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, because what happens is when they press the master vinyl disc, it's a metal plate, basically, with a special sort of chemical. And then the master needle marks the groove into that, right? Now, that only lasts for so long. It decays. And the grooves in the record actually fall flat over a period of time. So the idea is to press the records at the pressing plant as soon as you can after the master disc has been made. And if you're in a bit of a lead time at the pressing plant and your master disc has been made, you need to keep it fresh. And what they do is they put it in the fridge. I mean, you wouldn't believe it, would you?
Please tell me you're going to nickname your master CD Winston. Please tell me that's going to be a thing. That'd just be completely poetic if you did that.
Yeah, because you can write on the middle. You can write on the middle of it. You can write your own message. So I might, I'll think about that.
Because I think the fans will absolutely eat that up. They would just find that hilarious.
It's bonkers though, isn't it, really, when you think about it? In this day and age, our leading technology in vinyl pressing is such that you have to put the master disc in the fridge to preserve it before you get to the pressing plant. It's just bizarre.
is bizarre.
All sorts of weird stuff like that. All sorts of little stories and things, you know. And the people at Abbey Road are just so nice. And every one of them has, you know, amazing stories to tell. You know, Paul was telling me about a session that he did with Kylie Minogue, and then.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, that's just great, sort of hearing about that. And then, of course, Oasis are in there quite often. During the mixing session, I was just, you know, helped myself to a cup of coffee down the corridor, went into the toilets, and then on my way out, this guy comes in, and I immediately recognised him. And I was like, oh, all right, mate. And walked past him and then left and went outside the toilet. And I thought, yeah, it was that guy. And then I realised it was Noel Gallagher, right? And I was like, he must have thought I was a complete dick because he didn't know me at all. And he must be thinking, oh, yeah, another one of those fanboys, you know what I mean? That just, you know, I don't know. But it didn't click with me at all. I just thought, I thought it was my mate because I just knew him so well. But I'd never met the guy in my life, you know, obviously it's just from seeing him on telly and stuff. But that was really weird. And, you know, and stuff like that at Abbey Road is really sort of surreal. You do sort of just bump into very, very famous people, just like when you're having dinner in the canteen and stuff like that. You know, suddenly you sat down, you sat next to a person like George Michael or something.
Some famous person who you failed to remember.
Yeah, and it's just weird. It's just really weird, you know. And then, you know, you in that same moment, you're thinking, well, you know, I'm sat here now, and you know, I'm doing this here, and you know, what does that mean to me? And yeah, and it's such a surreal experience. We had Jill Furmanovsky. She's Abbey Road's resident photographer, and she's photographed all sorts of people, Pink Floyd back in the 60s. And so we were talking to the manager there at Abbey Road, and he said, you know, would it be okay if Jill came into one of your sessions to take some photographs? So, of course, you know, we'd heard about her, and we were like, what do you mean, is it okay? Of course it's okay, you know. So in came Jill, and she's lovely. She's really, really nice. And she was really excited to be there. And so, of course, she was taking photographs of us lot, you know, our production crew and what we were doing and stuff. And so that was then weird, because you're like, well, there's this, you know, really famous photographer that's here documenting all of this. Some of those photographs are now on the Abbey Road website. You know, our session, our Tomb Raider Suite session, and it's just like this. You know, you have to keep pinching yourself that it's actually happened.
Yeah, I bet.
You know, we're so busy with the project all the time, trying to get this right, trying to get that right, and hurry up. You know, every day it's just, you know, full on. There's not much time to actually enjoy it. And it's when little things like that happen, you have to just try and stand back for 5 minutes and just take a deep breath and, you know, try and enjoy it while it lasts, because the moments just fly by, man. It's scary.
It does sound like quite a magical place, especially for a musician or anyone to do with the industry.
That's why I was smiling, man. I didn't want to go home. I met so many people while I was there. I was just like, God, you know, I wish I worked here. What a great job to work there every day.
So another one from Easel Games is, if you could do anything differently about the Tomb Raider Suite project, what would it be and why, if anything?
I guess if I'm the perfectionist that I am, and if I had, you know, limited resources, I think I would have recorded the orchestra in sections a little bit more, I think.
Okay.
You know, we had so much time to record 93 minutes, and it was difficult to fit all that into 5 sessions. It was really difficult. So lots of times we just had to say, okay, that's enough, we've got to move on. So I think if I had more money and more time, I would do more takes for each track, so I could really practice those takes and make sure they were absolutely perfect. And I think I would have layered a few more instruments, i.e. recorded them separately, because when you got 124 people in that room, and over 100 different microphones, every microphone is listening to everything in that room. Yeah?
Yes.
So if I've got the 2 microphones on the piano, if I want to move the piano, timing wise, if I want to move him forwards or backwards in the piece by a few fractions of a second, if I do that, of course, the entire orchestra moves with him. Although quietly, because they're in the background of those 2 microphones. Okay.
Because you got the room ambience as well to sort of accommodate for
everything
it as well.
So as soon as you move the piano mics, you're moving the reverb, you're moving the whole of the orchestra. But of course, the whole of the orchestra from their close mics is still in the original position. So you start and get echoes. You start and get you get like double notes happening slightly after each other. So of course, you know, you move the piano, but of course all the other 99 mics are also hearing the piano. So you get those sort of problems. Now, if you record the instruments separately, you don't have those problems. But what you do lose is you lose the expression of the piece as a whole. You know, I've got 124 people all working together simultaneously. And that is something very special. And so you want to get that. So you don't want to record people too separately, too many, you know, you don't want to split it up too much.
Yeah. You don't want to be too isolated. You want to sort of capture the room.
Yeah, and you want to capture the feeling of everybody working together. So if one section of the orchestra slows down, in actual fact, you'll hear the rest of the orchestra almost wait for them, and then they'll catch up again. You know, and that sort of movement within the orchestra itself is unique, and that's what makes that performance unique and, you know, unrepeatable. You know, if we go in there again with the same orchestra, with the same people, and record it all over again, we will get a different performance. Do you see what I mean? We can't repeat what we've got.
Yeah.
So
it's the nature of live recording, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's special in that respect. But I think if I had more time to answer the question, I would record more takes so that the orchestra had more practice runs at each piece, and then our editing time in the mixing suite would be less of a headache.
The last one from Easel Games again says, how has the release been since the digital album came out and was made to the public, available to the public? How has it been?
You mean like the response from everybody?
Yeah. The general sort of feedback from fans and people.
Yeah, I think I've read 2 people that had negative things to say, but every other comment has been positive, and most people have just been blown away by it. You know, not just yeah, it was pretty nice. You know, not just that, but wow, this is incredible. You know, it's those sort of remarks. So it's great reading all of that, and I guess the best thing is hearing how it's moved so many people. You know, it's taken them back in time 20 years ago. People are telling me stories about when they were playing with their brother for months on end in their bedroom, you know, and nothing else happened in their life. It was just Tomb Raider, you know, and how they wish they could go back there and do it all again. And, you know, there's some lovely stories, lovely sort of family stories, daughters with their dads playing for months on end, and very special relationship bonding going on because of that. And yeah, all sorts.
It must bring a big smile to your face hearing that sort of stuff. It must have been amazing just to sort of look at all this and be like, wow, I've actually had an emotional impact with the stuff I've created with these people.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, it's what you strive to do, you know, and, you know, if my music is moving people emotionally, then it's doing its job. It's doing the right thing. So yeah, it's good to kind of read all those comments and get that confirmation.
Well, that just about wraps it up. I'm extremely grateful to have had the opportunity, despite the technical difficulties that we had earlier. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Nathan.
Oh no, it's been good fun talking to you as well.
I must admit, I was a little bit kind of moved when I went and saw the second concert in London.
Right.
Was sort of with me and my wife Sarah, and we sat down, and as soon as that theme kicked in, that was when kind of the nostalgia was just like, oh, and it just rose up and just hit me right. And I was like, oh no, I'm gonna cry a little bit. Stop it. But no, it was just incredible to have that opportunity to be able to relive that music that I grew up with, that you created, and obviously now being able to talk to you about it is just insane, because try not to gush, but you are one of my favourite composers.
Great,
thank you. Any kind of game soundtrack. So it was just like an honour to be able to speak to you. I'm kicking myself for not coming up and speaking to you when you were in between the interval, because I had the games with me and I was like, oh, I'm going to get Nathan to sign this, and I was like, oh, I can't go now, and you were backstage afterwards. It's like, oh, it's VIP. Oh, poo. So,
well, we'll just have to have another concert, mate, won't we? And then you have to get yourself to that.
Well, yeah. Is there that's another one, San Francisco, is that still happening?
We certainly haven't written it off at all. We only postponed it because we just had too much on our plate, basically, for the amount of people we've got working on it. So it's still on the cards. It's going to be next year. It certainly won't happen this side of Christmas.
No.
So we'll get the release fully out first, all the physical products out, and the Kickstarter campaign sort of 99% complete, except for that San Francisco event, and then we'll focus on that and have a jolly old good time.
Excellent. Well, I think I'm going to leave that there. It's again been an absolute pleasure to speak to you, Nathan.
You're welcome.
And I'd like to do this again at some point in the future. Who knows? But
why not?
It's just been really cool.